Heyo, it's me, Harper Savage, and today I'm going to be using some Posca markers on this pre-printed canvas. First, I'm showing you that I had to remount this canvas because the design was so far off from each other and it's like a continuous design, so it bothered me that it wasn't perfectly aligned. That was a really long and annoying process. I had to use many different types of pliers to rip the staples out, and then I had to find my mom's old staple gun to re-staple it onto the frame. So the design is off. Like there are spots that are missing the design, and there are spots that are hanging over the edges with the design on it. I don't know if all of them were like that, but I know the one that I got was definitely like that. I purchased this from a store called Five Below. It was a kit. It came with like its own paint set and like one little paintbrush, but because I know how bad these cheaper kits are, I basically was like, forget it. I'm not going to be using this cheap acrylic paint and waste all my time trying to make the layers opaque enough. So I decided to use Posca markers instead. It's one of the few mediums I brought with me when I went to house sit. And I had a whole day basically to myself because Knock was at work all day. I decided this is going to be a long project, why not do it now while there's going to be less distractions. Because me and Knock sit at the same table all day working on stuff, so it was just better this way. There's going to be a lot less like camera shaking in this video. So for this first panel, I tried to avoid all of the outlines with the Posca marker. That's why this one takes the longest, because there's a lot of line work on the flowers, and I just wanted to go around it because I wasn't sure if I was going to have a marker or paint marker thin enough to redraw these outlines back in. Basically, I was like, either I can go out and buy one, or I could just wait until I get home. But I didn't like either of those ideas, so eventually I throw out going around the line work, and I settle on trying to make everything shaded. And then I do go in later and do the outlines with a black Posca marker. You'll see that like way later in the video. But I went with a cell type of shading, I believe it's called, because I don't really know how to mix the markers together without an actual paintbrush or anything. So I figured this would be the best method to like make it look detailed still, because the illustration itself kind of was detailed, so I wanted to stick with that. I kind of had to guess what the shapes of these two petals on the end were, because the design ends before it's at the edge of the canvas. Like I mentioned earlier, all the designs were like shifted off. There's also that mark right next to the leaf. I don't know what it is, but it shows up. No matter how many layers I put down, it kept showing back up, so I think it must be like an oil or grease mark. I'm not sure where it came from. It probably happened when I was remounting the canvas, because it definitely didn't come like that. Like, this whole canvas is disgusting. Like, all of them are dirty because I had to hold it on the floor with my foot while I, like, wrenched out all the staples with both of my hands. It was just, like, the only way I could get it out. Now for the background, I was deciding between gray and purple. The reason gray won out was because there's something wrong with my purple Posca marker. You'll see it later, but there's just something wrong with it. I don't think I used it that much, so I think there's just something wrong with the nib where it's not flowing correctly. But I don't know, it could be running out. But I wanted like a nice neutral looking background, so I decided gray would probably be the best option anyways, because then it would like make everything else kind of pop off of it. Now these stars do not match the rest of the piece. They're very much like vector images added in after. So once I get to this small one and realize it was like I failed at like going around it with the Posca marker, I'm like, I'm just gonna color over them because they don't make any sense here anyways. I mean, not that a snake in a bottle makes sense, but I just didn't like it. It looked too weird and like it didn't belong. I do like a couple different layers in between cuts here, but I wanted to spare you guys, so I just, you know, cut it out so it wouldn't be like a 40-minute video of me coloring the same thing over and over again. I will say this actually did end up taking me about 4 hours to do, I think. Like, it was kind of an all-day affair. So this is sped up a lot. Now, I am a little bit upset of how much the snake is cut off, because I think I put it too low when I stapled it back together. Now, I color the water blue at first, but I kind of changed my mind because I want the bottle itself to be blue. I'm like, that's just too much blue happening. So I go ahead and I change the watercolor to purple because I really wanted to use purple in this piece for some reason. I don't use the horrible purple that isn't working right for all of it. I just use it for the top of the water. For some reason I imagined it being darker than the rest. I actually go through and kind of color over a lot of lines that are happening in the bottle because I think they were for shines, and I just didn't understand how to color shines that were right next to shines. So I kind of just ignore them. So here I have a lighter purple, and I decide that I want it to be darker on the top. So I go in with that purple that's dying. And it really is suffering here. So I did do another layer before I did the shadows and stuff. The purple still does not look right. But since we're about halfway-ish, maybe a little bit less, let me talk about how the Poscas work on canvas. I personally have not seen that many videos on YouTube, from the people that I watch anyways, where people are making a full art piece of Posca markers on canvas. Like, usually I see it for touch-ups or for like thin detail like line art or something. I wanted to try it out for a full piece, but I didn't like know what to draw or anything. So I figured the pre-printed image was a good tester. But this seems like an obvious thing to do, right? Color Posca markers on canvas. Well, it doesn't work out as well as you might think. Like, every time I use Posca I need to do 2 layers, but this project seemed like I needed to do a couple more. Like, the colors would color over themselves if it was that color previously. I had a hard time getting the colors to color over a different color though. Like, for example, the purple over the blue, when I colored the water blue, I had a hard time getting the purple to lay down, and I'm not talking about the purple that's running out, I'm talking about the lighter purple that I put down first. I just couldn't get it to cover it that well, so it took several extra layers. It was kind of pushing itself away, if that makes any sense. And it was completely dry, so I don't know why it was doing that. But the first layers are definitely like smooth, other than the, you know, you always have to do 2 layers with Posca. I don't think I've ever not done at least 2 layers with Poscas. I do think it's something you should try out if you haven't yet. Like, I know they're definitely better for details and touch-ups. So here we have the snake. The snake is the reason why I kind of threw out going around the lines, like the black lines when I was coloring. Because I realized there was so many scales on this snake, there was no way I was going to color around them, so I just colored over top. And I do, like, you know, basically get rid of them entirely by layering up the Poscas. So about these stems. I run into this problem a lot where coloring pages don't finish lines. Like, they're like, oh, it's behind something, so it's cut off, and then either they forget it or they just don't care. It's a huge pet peeve of mine, and I see it across many pre-printed designs and coloring pages. And I point them out every time I see them. Like, I know these are stems, so they could have been cut off, like, midway through the jar. But I just don't feel like that's realistic. Not that having a snake with some plants in a jar is realistic. Typically, I see plants being cut to size of the jar, and their stems hit the bottom of it, because they don't really float. So I just thought it was dumb that they stopped so soon. So I drew in a little bit of extra stem. I really like the color I used for the snake. I was really itching to use that darker color I'm shading it with because it was one of my new Posca markers that I added to my collection. I really like how it came out. And then I use the orange and yellowish color that I used previously in the center of the flower because I wanted to, you know, kind of limit my color palette a little bit. So at one point Nock does come back and she says that we can go out and get like a multi-liner or a thinner Posca marker if I really wanted to, because I didn't have a car so I couldn't go and do it myself. But I decided last minute that I'm too impatient for that, and I do the outlines with a thicker Posca marker. And it's not that bad. I actually quite like it. I thought it was going to turn out terrible, but it's actually like pretty nice looking. The only thing I wish there was a bit more variation in the line thickness, but you know, I was trying to work with what I had. I already brought a lot of stuff like project-wise with us. I didn't really need to go and buy more stuff, you know? I was debating on doing the outlines in like a different color, but I'm like, black was already here, and if I choose a different color I might have to go over it a couple of times to, you know, get rid of the black lines that were still there. So black was just the best choice in this situation. Now, unfortunately, I do end up missing a couple of lines in the recording, like the water, the top of the water I forgot to outline, and even the one side of the bottle I kind of forgot to do. I noticed it when I went to paint the edges of the canvas. I painted them black. I didn't do it during the video, and I didn't like record a final result of it after I did it or anything. It was just gonna be too much footage in the end anyways if I had recorded that. But yeah, I do fix the lines that I missed, so if that bothers you, I'm sorry. You can like maybe check my Instagram later to see if I am telling the truth about fixing those lines. But here is the finished piece. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to do all the cool YouTubey things of comment, liking, and subscribing. And I will see you again next time. Bye bye!